Hello, this is Christian Okoye, former Kansas City Chiefs. You are listening to Grilling Truth.
Hi, and welcome to the weekly college football pick'em show here at thegruelingtruth.net, brought to you by Gridiron Mo, an interactive football game app which pits you against other football fans across the country in predicting the next play within a live NFL game. Not for college yet, only for NFL. Think you're smarter than the average NFL fan? See it for yourself at Gridiron Mo through this website or at gridironmo.com. My name is Oz Davis. I'll be the host for this discussion on college football. We got a bit of a full house here tonight, so I'll introduce everybody, starting with our special guest. So joining us tonight is Bill Searcy, formerly of the University of Alabama Crimson Tide, including the national championship teams of 1979 and 1980. He also played with the Houston Gamblers, go USFL, and the San Diego Chargers. He's also the author of High Tide, a story of football, freefall, and forgiveness. Wow. Welcome to the show, Bill.
Hey, thank you. And let me just say one thing. Championships were 78 and 79.
78 and 79. Oh, but
I don't want to steal the thunder from my buddies from Georgia who won in 80. So.
Okay.
I would like to say this. That's my fault. I said him that. I was thinking 80 Sugar Bowl, but that would have been the 79 season. I apologize.
No,
and I would like to say this, too. If anybody wants to read a good book, High Tide by Bill Searcy is probably the best book I've read football-wise in the last couple of years. So I would suggest y'all go to Amazon and get it.
Is it better than yours, Mike?
It's not better than mine, but which you can also get on Amazon. So, but yeah, and I don't know. They were the two best football books probably written in the history of civilization, Oz.
Absolutely.
There you go.
No doubt.
Okay. All right. I'm sure this is a completely unbiased assessment of these two books.
Absolutely. It's just as unbiased as my opinion about Alabama. Go ahead.
And hey, if you go to Amazon, you'll find out that both books, I think, have 5-star ratings. So.
Yeah, that's right.
Now we just got to get Brian to write a book.
Yeah.
It's
easy.
Except one of them has about 800 votes, and the other one has about 3 votes. That's.
I've got a lot more than 3 votes. And I don't think they call them votes. I think they're called reviews.
I'm just hacking on you early. Let me get back to the introductions. Also joining us tonight is a regular here on many a Grueling Truth football podcast, Brian Schmidt. Brian, the silent one. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing good. Steelers won. Ohio State's in the playoffs. Only thing missing is I don't think there's anything missing this weekend. I think it's been a good weekend. And Wisconsin lost.
The Ravens won, though.
Yeah, no, it disappointed me. But it's all right.
Yeah, the Ravens won big. And last but not least, the man, the myth, the legend, the fearless leader of GruelingTruth.net, Mike Goodpaster. How you doing, Mike?
Trying to make up for ripping on me.
No, I want to rip on you and say you're the legend and the myth.
A legend in his own time. I mean, mine.
Right, exactly.
Either way, it works.
Yeah, exactly. There you go.
It's a legend nonetheless. In my own household, I'm a household name.
Well, I mean, Mike, if you didn't want me to say that, why did you send me that text as well?
I didn't send you that text because it would have been a lot grander introduction than that.
Truth comes out.
Okay, well, enough of the resume pumping. Let's talk some college football. We're recording this podcast about an hour or two after the committee just released its final rankings for the year, which determines, of course, the major bowl games and the college football playoff. Now, we'll let the resident Crimson Tide guy brag in a little bit, but I'd like to talk about some of the other major bowls that were determined tonight. Let's talk about these. The Outback Bowl has Florida versus Iowa. The Cotton Bowl is Western Michigan versus Wisconsin. Rose Bowl, Penn State versus USC. And Sugar Bowl, Auburn versus Oklahoma. Let me go to Brian first. Brian, which of these games are you most looking forward to?
I'm looking forward to Western Michigan versus Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm.
Just because Western Michigan, I think very, very much so can win that game, and if they win that game, quite honestly, maybe the wrong team was playing for the Big Ten title because they've already beat Illinois, they've already beat Northwestern, and to beat Wisconsin, just shows how tough they are. That's a good football team. And I think anybody that thinks that, I've already seen on there's a guy I saw on Facebook that's just complaining about the game and how it's going to be a horrible game. And I thought, wow, I mean, Western Michigan very much can win this football game. I think they're a better team than Wisconsin in a lot of ways, and I think that's a huge win. And they win that game. Again, you're talking about a team that will have beaten 3 Big Ten teams. So I'm looking forward to that game.
Mm-hmm. Now, Mike, I figured this is what you were going to pick. Is this your favorite of these four?
Well, I've got 2 games. Can I have 2 and have a tie?
Absolutely. Go.
All right, because I hear all these Big Ten fans because now they're finally, considered the best conference bragging. I think Penn State's going to go out and USC's going to hammer them. And I think Western Michigan, who has a quarterback, Wisconsin doesn't. Western Michigan's also very good defensively. They got one of the best wide receivers in the game. And Wisconsin showed that their problem is they can't play pass defense. And the problem is in the Big Ten, who did they have to play that had a quarterback this year? I mean, non-conference play, they beat LSU, but, I think Bill can agree with us that LSU has no quarterback. So I think they have a hard time with the passing game. I think their front 7 is as good as anybody in the country. But if Western Michigan can protect, and they are pretty good up in the front, I think Western Michigan beats them. And if Ohio State goes down, who's Michigan play?
Michigan. Oh, I'm going to have to look it up.
You don't have to look it up. But, right there, you might have all 4 of the Big Ten stud teams get knocked off.
Let me ask you, Bill, are you as high on Western Michigan as these guys? And
I am. I was going to say, let me have 2 picks, too. And it's the same as Mike, actually. It's Western Michigan. And my choice is not for such technical reasons other than I love the attitude and I love the coach and what he's taught those guys. And
yeah, he's going to get a big-time job too, Bill.
Oh, no doubt. He's got to be on everybody's list. And, he's just done a great job. I love it when they interview him, and he's just so fired up all the time. And, he's taught them that just because they're a smaller school doesn't mean anything. They can beat the big guys. And, I believe they beat Wisconsin also. And, we'll find out exactly how good Wisconsin really was and whether they deserve to be ranked higher or not because of this game. And then the Rose Bowl, I'm looking forward to USC and Penn State. We all know, and we were talking earlier about how we felt about Penn State and them having beat Ohio State and how we really thought how good they were. USC has become a really, really good team. And I'm really glad that Alabama didn't play them at the end of the year versus the first game of the year because they're a totally different squad. Typical USC, a lot of talented just athletes, big, fast, quick, the whole 9 yards. And I think they'll put Penn State in their place and make Penn State realize that although they had a great year, they weren't ready to be top 4.
Yeah. That's what I was going to say, Penn State versus USC, not necessarily because I think it's going to be the most competitive of these 4 games, but because I can't get enough of USC lately. I'm out here in Orange County, so I get them every week, and I try and watch them every week, and wow, they're just great. They're just great to watch. But, Bill, I got to ask you this. I am shocked that you didn't put in a good word for Oklahoma against Auburn. Aren't you going to be cheering for Oklahoma?
Hey, I think I don't. Guy, I'm stuttering. I'm so upset about it. I don't know who decided to pick Auburn to play Oklahoma in the Sugar Bowl. I just forget about that. I'm an Alabama fan and that I'm not real passionate about Auburn football, but I am passionate about the right teams being put in the right bowls, and I just don't think Oklahoma's matched up with the right team. I don't feel like Auburn deserved to be in the Sugar Bowl.
Yeah, I'd rather see like Oklahoma, Michigan, Bill.
Oh no, yeah, exactly. I mean, there's a lot of other matches they could have picked for the Sugar Bowl, and I think Oklahoma's going to blow them away.
Yeah, you could have gone Oklahoma, USC, and Penn State, Auburn. That would have been, more reasonable matchup.
Oklahoma,
USC
would have been.
Penn State people would have thought they should have been in the top 4 because they had won their bowl game.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
But I mean, look, Auburn. We just played Auburn. All right, Auburn does it.
You're right.
And this is no slam. They don't have a quarterback. Mm-hmm. You know, they don't even have a quarterback. And besides, they have some guys hurt. I mean, I don't see it. But hey, all I can say is Boomer Sooner.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's go on. Fiesta Bowl has the number 2 against number 3. That's Clemson versus Ohio State. Let me go to Mike first on this one. Mike, what are you looking for in this game?
I'm just looking for Clemson if they're going to show up and play a complete game or not. They have it all year. My question is this. Last year, they get within 6 points of winning the national championship. What they look like to me this year is they're just waiting to get back to the Final Four. They're doing just enough to win games. So can they turn it on? Now, I equate this to like the 93 Cowboys. After they won the Super Bowl in 92, 93, they didn't dominate everybody, but they did enough to win, and when it got time to play, they turned it on. I think Ohio State, they're lucky they're playing Clemson because Clemson has no defense. I think it's a shootout. If I had to lean one way or the other, I don't know which way I would lean here. Luckily, we're not having a show where we completely pick them yet, but I think this is a close matchup. I think Deshaun Watson could be the determining factor, though, as of right now. But I got like 3 weeks to think about it before we do that show.
Yep. Oh yeah. No, we're not picking today, guys. No pressure. Actually, there's one game we can pick.
Yeah, I'm going to pick one.
Brian, what are you thinking here?
One thing with Ohio State. They've struggled off, and I've been big on this all year. People don't realize how much Ohio State misses Herman calling the plays. Ohio State's going to have to make some changes after the season in terms of offensive coordinator because the play calling is terrible at times. With that being said, the one person in this that you don't want to give 3 weeks, whatever it is to prepare is Urban Meyer. They will have a good game plan. Now the thing that's scary is I think Clemson offensively, I think is a pretty loaded team. Yeah, they're not a great defensive team, but it really is going to come down to Ohio State being aggressive offensively, which when they've been aggressive offensively, they've been a decent offense. The problem is many games this year, especially in the Big Ten, they really played offensively close to the vest just to win it at the end. I'd like to see them really open it up a little bit more because when they've opened it up, they've been a pretty good offense. And I agree. I think it will be a shootout, but right now, I think it'll be a great game. I'm kind of on the fence too. If I had to pick a team, I don't know which one I'd pick right now.
Those assessments make both of these teams sound like they have some major weaknesses. Bill, do you see a lot of weaknesses here as well?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I think first both teams lost a lot of guys to the draft last year. So I think they both came into this year, rebuilding in a lot of positions on both sides of the ball. I'm a little bit partial to Clemson because I know Dabo Swinney pretty well, and he and I worked together for about 4 or 5 years in the real estate business before he went back into coaching. So my opinion is somewhat skewed because of that, because I know what kind of guy he is and what he teaches his players, and so I've been a fan of his other than when he plays Alabama for a few years, and he's done a great job. However, I think both teams have been fairly inconsistent at times. I know that J.T. Barrett, and y'all correct me if I'm wrong because I don't watch Ohio State that often, but he's a great athlete and can lead the team to a victory. But, 1 week he's completing passes and then another week he's not completing passes. And they lost a lot of people on that side of the ball to the draft. And so they've been rebuilding all year long and kind of squeezing by a game here and there and finally lost the one game to Penn State. And Clemson's done the same thing. And Clemson plays in a weaker league. I don't think the ACC is as strong as the Big Ten this year, and Clemson has had some very close games. I think part of that is what was just said a minute ago, is this: they've been trying to just get wins through this year just to get to where they are now in the Final Four. I think the quarterback kind of might have been doing the same thing himself, as far as I think he was more concerned about impressing the NFL scouts than he was playing big games. And so I think he's gotten back to his old self and is just doing whatever it takes to win games, whether it's with his legs or his arm. And he's capable of doing both. He is. He's very dangerous, and he can throw the ball, he can run the ball. He kind of does it all. So I'm not ready to pick one yet, but like I said, I do lean towards Clemson just because of the head coach.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
now,
Bill.
I got a real quick. I just want to interject. If you got Dabo's phone number, we could get him on in like 2 or 3 weeks. That'd be awesome.
I'll try. I'll try. I can't swear to it, but I'll try.
Or we just have him on after, especially if it was.
Let me tell you, you would really enjoy. You would really enjoy talking to the guy, and obviously a very knowledgeable football guy, but just very interesting guy to talk to, and his outlook on things, and he's not ashamed of what he believes in, and not very outspoken, as you know. You've seen him interviewed. And,
I like him.
Yeah, I just feel like he's teaching his team the right things, and I think he really does teach them a lot about just life and being men and what they should be doing. So, but hey, don't let me slight Urban Meyer. A great coach. Don't know him as well as I know Dabo Swinney, but great coach. And you're right. You don't want to give Urban Meyer or Nick Saban or any of these guys 3 or 4 weeks to prepare, because I believe they can prepare for just about anything, and they will expose your weaknesses because they will know what they are by then.
Mm-hmm. Good coaching battle there then. Okay, Bill, I was going to stick with you, but instead I'll let you get a good lungful of air so you can really talk up your Alabama Crimson Tide for the Peach Bowl here. But I wanted to go back to Mike for a second because Bill just brought up something that I wanted to bring up again, and that's this. Okay, so you mentioned that Clemson is kind of, they're doing enough to get to the bowl playoff, right? And to me, that sounds like the sort of professional strategy, that we've been seeing in sports. We see teams like the San Antonio Spurs and the Patriots. That's the way they're built now. They're built for the playoffs. Is this a consequence of the playoff system, and do you see it working?
I don't know that it's a consequence. I think that's more of something that they may not even be thinking about, if you know what I mean. I mean, because really, when you're putting whether you make a playoff or something in the hands of somebody else, I mean, there's no guarantee that they were going to get in. I mean, I think, let's face it, a lot of this on who gets in, to me, goes to TV ratings. Deshaun Watson's TV ratings. Right. Ohio State is, Alabama is. Not saying those teams don't deserve it, but if it's going to come down between Penn State or Deshaun Watson, I mean, come on.
Well, yes, but the thing is, the Clemson athletic director and those people are not dummies, okay? They know that they were the Cinderella story. They were the hype story last year in the playoffs, and they know that all they need to do is have a good season, and they will be in contention for that.
Yeah, but the problem is this. I've seen the majority of times when teams do that, you can't just turn it on when you want to most times.
Okay. Except teams are learning how to do that now.
I don't think you learn
professional teams. Professional teams.
Yeah, but professional teams aren't learning how to do it. The San Antonio Spurs just sit their best players, and they rest them. Yeah. It's not the same thing as going out and maybe not playing great, because when the Spurs play, they play at a high level if their starters are in the game.
Okay, fair enough.
And the Spurs also have an 82-game schedule.
Yeah.
So you can. It's a lot different playing an 82-game schedule as it is, a 12-game schedule.
Yeah, because let's face it, they played 4 games that could have easily lost, Brian, and if one of those games, them playing like that, cost them that game, they'd be out right now.
Exactly. It's a big difference with an 82-game schedule because, let's be honest, in the NBA, pretty much everybody's getting in for the most part. You got You got 8 in the West, 8 in the East. I mean, there's not a whole lot left there.
Yeah, if you're around 500, you're getting in.
So they know, well, hey, we get in as a 2 or a 3 seed, we're fine. We rest our guys. We make sure our guys are ready, and they do. And some of that's coaching in that understanding. It's an 82-game schedule. We just need to get in as a 2 or 3, and we need to be playing our best basketball when we get there. It's different in the standpoint of, a situation like this. It's 12 games.
Well, okay. This was a bad example. But it's like Mike said, look, those Cowboys teams of the 90s could do this. The Patriots nowadays do this as much as they can. There's
between a grown man doing something and a teenage kid too, or somebody.
Yeah. This is fair point as well. But then again, you guys are talking great coaches, right? Couldn't the coach set up a system for this? Ohio State assumes they're going to be in the Final Four every year. Therefore, they just have to do enough to win. And you guys are talking the same thing. You got to be ready at the end of the year, right? You still have to do that in college football. You have to win your conference. You have to win in the bowl, right? So, I don't know. It's just something I was thinking about because based on what you said. All right. Let's do it. Let's talk Peach Bowl. Bill, go.
Well, let me if you'll let me back up for a second, I want to make a comment about what you were just talking about.
Oh, sure.
I think that what Mike said is true. I think that teams, and I'm speaking of college now, but some college football teams do it subconsciously, and that is, I don't think the attitude of players today is what it was when I was in college. And here's what I mean by that. When I was in school, we wanted to win every game, and we wanted to win every game by 35 points. And if we didn't, we were somewhat disappointed as a team with ourselves. I think nowadays these guys want to win, but if they don't win by, if they have a bad game and they beat a weak team by 3 points, their attitude is, hey, we still won. It's still a W in the column. And so I think that because there's such parity in college football now, so much better than it used to be, that a 3-point win is not as disappointing to the guys, and so they get over it and they just go on to the next game. And as long as they're undefeated by the end of the year, and as long as they're undefeated by the time they win their conference championship, like Alabama did yesterday, they're happy. They're in the top 4. They're going to the playoffs, and they don't take it as personal. I think their attitudes are much more professional. Does that make any sense to you?
Sure. I mean,
than it was when we were there.
Let's ask the coaches. I mean, what is this a consequence of, Brian, Mike? Why does this happen?
Which one Mike, did you want to answer? Because you said Brian, Mike.
So go, Brian. Flip a coin, Brian.
Well,
why do you think?
I think I agree. Attitudes have changed. Football now, and you can probably apply this to all sports, but football now, it's become, I almost use the term more intellectual type of thinking that players have, in terms of the fact that, back when I was in school, I didn't play at Alabama or anything like that. Back when I was in school, you won by 3 points and you were ticked off, especially if it was a game that you expected to, win by more. Well, now, it's win and survive is really kind of the attitude. And I see that even, at this level, at a professional level, it's win or survive, especially on the road. If you win by 3 points on the road, it doesn't matter. It's that win or survive mode. Okay, hey, we won. We survived. Now we got to get the next week, because the attitude becomes, you can't dwell on what just happened last week. You got to concentrate on what's going on this week. So the mindset has changed a lot with players, and I think coaching as well. I mean, we stress all the time. I mean, we get off that game we just played as quickly as possible, win or lose. You go, you make your adjustments, and now you're moving on. I mean, there's no sticking around on those games now. It just doesn't happen. So I think that the mindset has changed. And I don't know if it's necessarily good or bad. You know, I like the idea of playing with a chip on your shoulder, and you don't see that as much now. It's win, survive, move on, get to the next week. So it definitely has changed.
Mm-hmm. Mike, what do you think? Why does
I think it's a societal thing. I think it's bad.
Uh-huh.
I think it's good to want to go out and dominate somebody.
Uh-huh.
And if you don't, you shouldn't be happy about it. You forget it right away, but you go out and you try to, inflict that on the other team. I mean, I don't understand just wanting to be good enough to get by, but we live in a world now that I think lives by that credo. It's good enough to get by. I don't think people necessarily want to be great anymore. They just want to be good enough to survive.
And the problem is, and I know, Mike and I, we've seen this too, the problem is when you try to change that mindset of, don't just play to get by, play to dominate, guys shut down. Guys don't want that pressure. And so when you put that pressure on them and they shut down, well, then when things start going bad, now a lot of guys don't have the mental fortitude to be able to handle when things go bad. So, as coaches, we've almost had to change with how society, and I agree with that, and just how players and everything, how the mindset is, because if you don't, things get bad quick. And I mean, we've seen it firsthand. The more you push guys to, play to dominate, the more when things don't work like they think it should, or they're put adversity in front of them, now all of a sudden
they freak out.
They freak out and they shut down. And
put it like this: everything. Bill played for Bear Bryant. If Bear Bryant was coaching today, you would probably have every parent at that school complaining about the coach being mean to their kid.
No, absolutely. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Is that's a good point Brian just made, was that these guys that they're coaching now, their whole life they've been brought up coached a certain way, and it's not the old school way. If it gets too tough, or if the coach yells at them or says a bad word to them, they're going to run home and tell mom and dad. Mom and dad are going to the school and complain about the coach. Well, I had always been told that Coach Bryant, one of the reasons, probably there's lots, but one of the reasons he never went to the NFL in those years was he knew that he couldn't go to the NFL and coach the way he coached us in college, because there was always a fear factor. Not that you were scared of him. I don't know how to put this. Not that you were. It was a more of a respect thing than fear, I guess is a better way to say it. But we respected that if we would do, and he told us, if we would do what he told us to do, no matter how crazy we might have thought it was, that we would have a very good chance of being champions and national champions. So we were a bunch of young kids that were willing to go out and dodge traffic if we needed to, if he told us to, because we wanted to win a championship. But nowadays, you go tell some guys like that at college, and guess what? They're going to all transfer. That's what they do. They just quit and transfer. I mean, we had a quarterback.
You're going to lose your job real quick.
Yeah, and you're going to lose your job. So, yeah, it's a societal thing that's been building, and that's just kind of where we are.
And it's hard when you start coaching in the early 90s, and you can coach like that. And, I mean, then you can't all of a sudden. And then I just find myself taking it out on officials.
Yeah.
I think Brian can vouch for me on that.
Oh yeah, and it's true. I started coaching in the early '90s, and when I was coaching high school ball, the way we coached, and the coach that first to hire me is a legend in Ohio, and the way we coached then to the way coached even 6 years later changed. And that was one of the reasons I got out of coaching high school football, is I just, you even look at a kid wrong and the parents are, at your door 2 hours later. So, and it's the same way,
Brian, you got to admit, though, It's kind of the same way when you coach what's supposed to be a professional player now.
Oh, absolutely it is.
It's turned into that.
You know, you almost have to play a good cop, bad cop kind of coaching scenario, in that you got to have somebody on your staff. If you're going to be the bad cop and you're going to be the one to jump somebody's butt, you got to have a coach on your staff to be the good cop that goes behind you and pats them on the butt and say, now it's okay. Because if you don't, you know, here we are.
Wow.
So it's changed a lot. It's not what it once was, and you know, to be successful, you know, as coaches, we've had to change with it, and it's the same way at the college level. I mean, you see it now. You don't, you know, I mean, you got a coach at Indiana being fired for, you know, I guess being tough on players or whatever it was. So I mean, it doesn't take much anymore.
I think part of the brilliance of coaches like Urban Meyer and Dabo, Coach Saban, and all these top coaches, I think part of their brilliance is that they have been able to adapt to what we're talking about and has found ways to motivate and train and bring these new guys, these new age kids along to become champions, and have figured out a way to psychologically. I mean, I know Alabama uses, there's no telling how much money is spent there on sports psychology and motivation. There's constantly someone there working with the team on these types of things. But all these coaches, these top coaches now at all the big schools, I'm sure, but they've all figured out ways to motivate these guys. And I think that might be one of the hardest things they have to do as a coach today, is figure out how to keep these guys interested and excited and keep them in school long enough without trying to, declare for the draft.
So yeah, if possible. Well, guys, this is heavy stuff. I think we all agree that football is life, but we should probably get back to this. Peach Bowl, number 1 Alabama versus number 4 Washington. Bill, do you want to go? Go, man. I'm
sure.
giving you the open mic. Alabama, how badly will they win?
Well, we're pretty modest down here, and we're just glad to be there. How's that sound? Look, Alabama's got I think that Alabama's defense is, I'll step out here, I'll get slammed for this. I think Alabama's defense is the best defense that's ever been at Alabama.
Wow.
Wow. I think, and here's, last year they were great last year. There's been lots of great years going all the way back to the ones I know about in the 70s, the goal line stand and all those things. A lot of great defenses. But this defense, I was watching yesterday, is so fast and so intense and so determined that you're not going to cross the goal line. It's crazy. It's just become, they're convinced that they're the best. And when they get in gear and get you, they smell blood. It's like sharks, man, in water. And their defense is I feel like is why we're still undefeated. Just because they've scored more touchdowns than most of the opponents we played, and continue to do that. Where Alabama's, and I'm kind of focused on defense for a second, but where Alabama, I think in the past, was that there were some weaknesses that you could exploit. Probably people would say the secondary being one of those. This year, the secondary has played much better. And part of that reason, I think, is because the pressure that's coming from the front guys, the front seven, have put so much pressure on quarterbacks. I don't, much like Ohio State, I don't watch Washington a whole lot, but I know a little bit about Washington, and I do know that they've got a good or great offensive line, that they give their quarterback ample time, if not a lot of time, most to throw the ball. However, I don't think he is as elusive a quarterback as some that we played already this year, that he is a good drop back, get in that pocket and throw the ball downfield. The key is can they stop our front seven from pressuring and sacking? We've got some pretty big injuries right now in our secondary. Hopefully, at least one of the two that's out will be back. But I think it's the best defense. And our offense, of course, we're led by a freshman who's had a great year for a freshman. But I don't always agree with some of the plays that it's called. I don't think we've run the ball as much as we could have run it all year long. We throw the ball probably more than I would like to see, but then again, that's why they pay Coach Saban $7 million and then not me. But our defense has put us in position to win games over and over and over again. And even when the offense is having a slow day, the defense just keeps getting the ball back or has a goal line stand, and then the offense will score enough points to just win and still be undefeated. But I think it's going to be a good game. I don't think it will be a high-scoring affair. But I don't know.
All right. Let me give you the easy question, Mike. What does Washington have to do to win this game?
Block them.
Okay.
Right
That's
now,
easy.
if you look at them, if you look at Washington, they're the fastest team in the country, I think, offensively. They got John Ross, who's a threat to score every time he touches the ball. You got Myles Gaskin. If you looked at him against Colorado, and Colorado's a really good football team. I know the Pac-12 gets ripped all the time, but Colorado's a solid football team. And they basically lined up and ran the ball down their throats.
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to be able to do that with Bama. I think Bama, but the thing is this, can they be somewhat successful? Can they be successful enough to back off the pass rush? Now, I don't know if they can do that or not. I haven't looked at their offensive line close enough. But Myles Gaskin's quick, shifty, really good running back. John Ross is as good as just about anybody in college football catching the ball. Jake Browning had a huge season, threw for 3,300 yards, 42 touchdowns, only threw 7 interceptions. So he takes care of the ball well. And the other thing is this. I think the key is anytime they get the ball in the red zone, they have to put a touchdown up. And just not turn the ball over. I'm not convinced that Bama's offense is a great offense. I think their defense and special teams makes them a great offense because they put so much pressure on the other team that, Washington averaged 44 points a game. I think Bama averaged 41. But the thing that stood out to me is the Huskies scored on 54 or 57 red zone visits, which is 94 or 95% of the time. I think second was Alabama at 88 or 89%. So it's all going to come down to up front if they can block them. Now, I think Washington will be able to slow down the Alabama offense. Defensive line-wise, their defensive line is huge. I think they're the second best defensive line in college football. I think these are the two best teams in the Final Four. Now,
yeah.
My question is this, and people ask about the schedule, and the schedule's not great, but they have a defense that only gives up 17 a game, which is 9th nationally. And let's face it, in the Pac-10, most teams score a lot of points. They're all good offensively, and they held teams to 17 points. So I think if their defense can keep them in the game and they don't turn the ball over, they actually have a chance. But it's all going to come down to whether their offensive line can block Alabama.
Well, look, I think that Alabama's I think the toughest defense that Alabama played this year was LSU. And our offense, in all honesty, our offensive line has. I agree with Mike. I said I don't think we have a great offense. I think we have a good offense. I think we have an adequate offense. At times, our offensive line has allowed just too much pressure on this young quarterback, and he's had to improvise, which he's been able to do because he's got great legs and can make things happen. But he's also made a lot of mistakes, and he's put the ball on the ground and thrown some interceptions. And he's a young guy, so if you put enough consistent pressure on him, he's going to make some mistakes. His demeanor and attitude is, I don't know how much y'all have watched him, but the kid is way more mature than 18 years old. The way he acts when he makes a mistake, he just comes back again, But But the offense is adequate. Now, we got some great receivers if he can get the ball to them. But I do get concerned about our offensive line play against Washington's defensive line. That's probably where my biggest concern is going into this thing.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Brian, I got one for you. I mean, I know you never coached at the college level, but you are a coach. And here's your situation. You're a 14.5-point underdog, okay, and you've got a month to prepare. What can you come up with in a month?
Figure out a way to put some kind of medicine in Alabama's food. And,
the drug solution, the Lawrence Taylor.
So, yeah, I think, and I agree with what Mike said about Washington. Even last night, was looking at some things with Washington. It really just comes down to the simple thing. It's going to come down to blocking. It's going to come down to that. But for Washington to win this game, they've got to find, and you've got 3 weeks to do it. They've got to find some kind of even small weakness in Alabama's defense. They can exploit, match up something, and just don't get into a scoring. Don't get into a point where you're not scoring in the red zone, and Alabama is. If you're having to put 3 up and Alabama's put 7 up, that ain't gonna work. I really think that it's just going to really come down to Washington playing mistake-free. They've got to be able to block, and you've got to take advantage and get a couple turnovers. Washington has a pretty good defense. Get a couple turnovers and turn those into scores, and now you change this game drastically, and that's going to be the real key. If you can get an interception here, a fumble there, and you turn those into 7. Now it changes everything, and that's what you've got to really be looking for.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right.
Yeah,
great.
and I still think it comes down to this. If they don't turn the ball, if Bama doesn't get any points on defense, I think this could be a fairly low-scoring game because I really think Washington's defensive line and Alabama's defensive line could control this entire game.
I'll tell you, last night against Florida, and I don't know how much you guys saw that game or if you had a chance to see any, but against Florida, not that it turned into a lot of points, but I saw a few things that Florida did that I hadn't seen many other people do this year, and they were using some misdirection and
the screens,
in the screens, and they had some success doing that because he was able to get rid of the ball quickly before the rush got to him, and I was pretty impressed with a couple of the plays that they ran against the defense last night, obviously trying to exploit the speed of the defense against them. But the thing about it is if you can't fumble and let us get the ball back, that's where our defense has exploited people all year long. They've done such a good job at turning turnovers into points. And the other thing is, even when we have given the ball away, when we fumbled, people haven't turned it into points. Brian just said, if you get the ball, you've got to turn it into points against Alabama, and it's true. It's happened several times this year. We turned the ball over and put ourselves in horrible position, and defense just comes in and stones you for 4 plays. And so Washington's got to turn those turnovers in, if they get any, to 7 points and not 3, because I think I'm like Mike. I think it's going to be a pretty low-scoring affair. I think it's going to be a battle, and it's going to be a battle in the trenches. And that's going to decide who wins this game.
Yeah, and I think it's a low-scoring game unless one of the 2 quarterbacks, and they're both young quarterbacks, makes a couple quick mistakes, and then the game could get out of hand either way.
Yeah.
And let's face it, has Alabama really been tested this year?
Yeah, that's a question.
Well, depends on your definition, I guess.
Where they fall behind, and maybe they're in the third quarter and they're behind.
Yeah, well, in the Ole Miss game, we were behind by 21 points in the first half. And, that's the other thing. People, we have been tested, but have been able to just hang in there. Once again, we've been able to hang in there and just kind of stay the course and not go crazy and just stay with the game plan and come back and win games. We don't. There's lots of times that, and last night was one of them. I mean, we're not a good first half team for some reason. First play last night of the game, quarterback fumbles. Now, he recovered it, but he starts the game that way, and so.
Well, my point is this, though, Bill. That team that you fell behind 21-0 was a team that could throw the ball down the field and had a decent offensive line.
That's right.
What they didn't have was the ability to run the ball like Washington or the ability to play defense.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good point. I mean, there's been a couple of games where in the first half I didn't think things were going to go our way. And we've just been able to – what happens is they readjust. They adjust at halftime to whatever has hurt them in the first half. And like you said, the team may not have a running game. We shut the pass down, so they have nothing left to do. Yeah. So Washington very well could be that team that has an answer for the defense. We hadn't seen that yet this year.
And to kind of go on that point, and this is more for Alabama and Ohio State especially, is the one thing about those teams is when they're faced with adversity, they don't panic.
Right.
You see it with Alabama. You see it with a lot with Ohio State this year. And that's a reflection on their coaching. But there's not a panic. Ohio State being down to Michigan, they didn't panic. Alabama and I remember them being down 21 to Ole Miss. There was no panic. Yeah. That's the key, and that's where in a game like this, let's say Washington fumbles and Alabama turns it into points, and Washington goes forward and Alabama turns it into points. Does Washington have the ability as a football team yet to not panic to that adversity? Or are they going to look at it and go, well, we're down 14-0 Alabama, let's go ahead and fire up the bus, get out of here. And that's going to be the real key.
Well, you don't want to get yourself – I will say this about Alabama. You don't want to get yourself in a position where you have to throw the ball every down trying to catch up. You don't want to let them pin their ears back. And as long as the game stays close where Washington can continue a running game and a passing game, then it'll continue to be close. But if it ever gets to where Washington panics and feels like, hey, we got to start throwing the ball and we got to start throwing it every down, that's where people get in trouble, I think, with Alabama.
Yeah, and that's my worry for Washington.
Yeah, you become one-dimensional. When you become one-dimensional, those guys they start drooling, man. That's what they live off of. Because what they've been taught, and I was watching interviews today, and I know it for a fact, though, but what they've been taught is that they want to make the guy across from them not want to come back out and make for another play. That's how they're taught, and that's how they've been playing so far. So, just don't let them. You've got to do a lot of different things. You can't get stuck into one mode, whether that's the run or the pass or whatever. You got to do it all, or you're not going to have a chance, I don't think.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. Okay, Mike, how are we doing on time? Do we have to clear this line?
We're good. Whatever you want to do. It's recorded.
All right, great. Let's talk about this one because I do want to talk about one more game, not the New Mexico Bowl. I want to talk about one more game. Next week, of course, is the last college game we'll be getting for a couple of weeks, I guess. Army-Navy. Now, I know that Mike is real big on this game, so I want Mike to kind of hype this up for us. But, Mike, I want you to keep in mind that Navy has won 13 times in a row and 17 in the last 19. Why is this such a great game for you?
Well, it's the biggest rivalry in the country. I mean, how do you get bigger than Army-Navy? And the thing is this. If Ohio State and Michigan are both 4-8, nobody's going to care. Mm-hmm. But Army-Navy, if both teams are 0-10, people watch it.
Right. Yep.
I mean, it's the military academy. Yep. I mean, I'm not huge on the military just because I'm not huge on the government anymore. But, I mean, you got guys.
Word.
You've got guys that are actually student athletes that their main objective, they get up at 6 o'clock in the morning to start their day. They go to bed at 10 o'clock at night, and in between that, at some point, they go practice for 3 or 4 hours. Mm-hmm. I mean, they're the cream of the crop. You got nobody that doesn't have, you got to get, what, a state senator or something, or somebody in the House of Representatives to even nominate you to get in there. To me, this is what college football is supposed to be.
Mm. No, well put, well put. My dad was an Army guy, so I watched this game every year. Brian, are you going to watch this game?
Oh, absolutely. I watch it every year.
Yeah.
I think it's, even with Army being down here for the last several years, it's still always the game to watch. And I don't know that this is the year that Army breaks streak, but I know that they've been playing better football this year. I think it'll be a better game than what's been seen, over the years. I know Army played pretty well last year, if I remember right, but I think it'll be a better, game. But really, it is for me. It's always been one of the great games to watch because it's just the true meaning of what college athletics is supposed to be. But also, it's you're going to have Army down by 21 and 2 minutes left in the game, and they're still fighting to win the game. You don't see that really in anything other than Army Navy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You like this game, Bill?
I do like it. They've been playing this thing since the late 1800s, I know, and they've been playing forever. And like the guys just said, these are true student athletes in every sense of the word. And, not only are they in these military academies that are extremely difficult to get into and extremely difficult to stay, with more rules and regulations than any of us could ever imagine. But they also, but in the meantime, they also find time to work out, to train, to practice football, play football, and keep grades up. But knowing that when they're done with all of that, then they do have a commitment to fulfill after college. And it's not the NFL. It might be Afghanistan, but it's, and so I have the utmost respect for these guys. And, they obviously go there for the love of a lot of things, country being one, which I think is sorely lacking these days. But the tradition of the two schools and of the game, and I don't think they go there with the idea that it's going to get them into the NFL or they're going to make $1 million afterwards. They do it because I think they love their country first. They probably love football second, and it just kind of puts everything in perspective. These guys are playing, like you said, it wouldn't. If other teams had the records they had, they wouldn't be able to sell one ticket.
Yeah,
but for this game, everybody's watching on TV. Everybody's going nuts like it's the Super Bowl, Mm-hmm. So I think it's special.
Actually, Mike, I got one rivalry that's better, but you won't like it. Harvard-Yale.
How's that better? They don't.
They're real smart.
You're not even allowed to have a gun in Harvard and Yale.
They're really smart though.
They're all sissies. Come on, George Bush went to Yale. I think he was a sissy. Everybody goes to Harvard and Yale's a sissy. Our Army and Navy, everybody's a man. Everybody at the Air Force Academy is a man. I'm just kidding too. If anybody at Harvard Yale owns a business and wants to be a sponsor of Grilling Truth,
I was going to say Bill Searcy didn't say Harvard Yale. No, I didn't. That wasn't me.
No, actually, Harvard Yale is a great rivalry, but I just don't care.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've actually watched Harvard Yale before when both teams were really good. I remember watching a game a few years back where one of them was undefeated, and actually Harvard Yale, I think the 1968 game that ended up a 29-29 tie, is still considered one of the greatest games ever played. And I think Tommy Lee Jones played in that game, I think for Yale, but I'm not sure. I know he played on one of the teams.
I think so. That sounds right.
What was it?
Yeah, well,
I don't remember. I think, I'm not sure. I've actually got the game on videotape.
Did you?
He's got the legendary videotape collection.
I got everything.
This guy has everything.
I got probably half the games you played at Bama.
Well, God,
Brian's
don't watch
been to my house. He knows.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, let's see. All right, well, let's get this in because, Mike and I have discussed this many times on this show, and we got at least one more opportunity to do it. So let's talk about the Heisman with Bill and Brian. What do you think? Who's the competition for Lamar Jackson here? Let's go to Bill first. What do you think, Bill? Is there competition?
Well, that's a tough question.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, okay, so here's Mike. Here's what Mike's got on his Heisman Trophy power rankings. Well, we can go to Brian on this one. JT
that was last
Barrett.
week. I mean, come on. Let's face
this is last week?
Lamar Jackson's going to win it because nobody did enough to take it from him yet. I don't know, unless Brian disagrees with me.
Yeah.
It depends on what Deshaun does in the playoffs and if he makes it to the championship.
But the votes are in tomorrow, Bill. I think they
really?
have the Heisman.
Oh, okay.
The Heisman Trophy, I think, is always awarded the night that Army-Navy's play.
That's true.
Yeah.
I don't know. You don't think Deshaun Watson has a chance?
Stats aren't as good as Jackson, didn't play as well, and Jackson had such a big lead. And the other thing that I saw that really skews this, which they really need to change, is like 9 or 10% of the votes were already turned in before this week.
Oh yeah.
And I think that when they did a poll on the Heisman voters last week, I mean, Lamar had like 87% of the votes. And Jackson played really well last night, but I don't think he had a night like Carson Palmer had against Notre Dame to win the Heisman or some other guys have had. Now, do I think he deserves it? I don't think so.
Mm-hmm.
But you think Lamar deserves it?
Who do I think should win it?
Humphrey.
Yeah.
Honestly, the best football player in the country is Adoree Jackson out of USC.
Wow.
If you watched him against Notre Dame, I mean, the dude intercepted I think he picked off 4 passes, returned for touchdowns, returned multiple kicks for touchdowns. Played great all year, but USC had a bad start. Nobody even paid attention to him. But I think he's up there. I mean, I think a lot of guys had at least as good a year as Lamar. I mean, Donnell Pumphrey at San Diego State, the running back, he's a stud.
Yeah.
I mean, Dante Foreman from Texas. But for some reason, the only time that a guy can win if he's not on a team that is in the top 20 is if they go to Notre Dame. Because I remember Paul Hornung, I think, won it back in the 50s on a 2-8 or 2-9 Notre Dame team. But I mean,
you remember that? You remember? You're not that old.
I was born in 1968, but I had a former life. Let's just put it like that and leave it there.
Okay. Right. You were born with a videotape collection. Yeah.
Peppers?
See, that's my
Peppers
favorite.
had his chance against Ohio State.
Yeah.
If he would have done something there, but I mean, really, Peppers probably the best all-around player because heck, he plays both sides of the ball.
Yeah.
I think Baker Mayfield has a good case. But then again, a couple bad games early killed him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think I've kind of got, more of a thing for Mayfield. I really like what he did. The problem is because of the bad games early, it took him out of the running fast, and now that he's done all these great things since and has put up really impressive numbers, really impressive games, he just doesn't get a whole lot of discussion.
Yeah, but should it take him out? Because if you're a team, an early loss is not considered as bad as a late loss.
Well, unfortunately, it does, though. I
think if Baker Mayfield was the quarterback at Ohio State, Michigan, or Notre Dame, he'd won the Heisman off the season he had.
Oh, absolutely. I agree with that. But
I think Mayfield should get the Heisman because he's going to get drafted by the Cleveland Browns next year. So you got to
give him something.
Prize. Yeah, consolation prize.
Yeah, because he's going to be a bust if he goes to Cleveland because everybody is.
That's the rule of the universe, basically.
No, Johnny Manziel's coming back. He's going back to Cleveland. He'll be all right.
Johnny would have failed anywhere, but I mean, the way Johnny is, he's probably hanging out partying with Oz in California, anyways. Now, you got to get him on the show, Oz.
Yeah,
well, I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure the pictures of Manziel and Oz will be on TMZ probably within the next few days.
Exactly. I mean, he's going to be taking a selfie. I mean, he's going to bust himself like he always does. You'll see me and him doing up heroin at some bar. Orange County here.
I can't believe you said that, Oz.
If I miss the show next week, that's why I'm shooting it up with Johnny Heroin.
Struck out with Johnny Manziel. Yeah, well, maybe you can have Johnny on the show.
I think we both might be too blasted if we do that. Let's see. Okay, well, let's wrap it. Brian, what you got to say for yourself to close things out?
Well, great show, and like I said, I'm going to continue to ponder on. My heart obviously is going to be Ohio State winning against Clemson, but if I have to put money on it, I can't really decide on which team to pick right now. So that to me makes the decision of putting Alabama, Ohio State, Clemson, and Washington, because anybody else we're sitting here talking about a blowout. I think at least when you've got Ohio State and Clemson in this, it certainly brings some excitement to it, and also you look at it and go, well, if Ohio State or Clemson wins and they play Alabama, can they beat Alabama? And certainly if we're sitting here talking about the Penn States of the world, it's not happening. So I think that the committee made a great choice in the 4 teams, and it should be a good playoff. I think it'll be competitive.
Brian, you don't have to pick anything now. We don't want to spoil, don't want to steal any thunder. We still have a couple more shows to do, so don't pick anything now. You can pick the Army-Navy game, and Navy is an 8.5-point favorite. You want to pick that?
Yeah, you got to go with Navy until Army gives you a reason. Plus, Navy's a real good football team. That is an outstanding team, and I think Navy's just one of those teams that they continually get. I don't want to say get better, but every 2 or 3 years, they're usually good, and then you get every about 2, 3, 4 years. Usually it's about a 3 or 4 year span that they just have that real good team that could beat just about anybody in the country. So I think it's going to be a good game, but I think Navy will win this game.
Okay. All right. Mike, any final thoughts? You want to?
Yeah, Army will beat Navy. Army will beat Navy.
Army will beat
Army will beat Navy. Navy lost their starting quarterback, their starting running back. Army is not a great team, but they're a solid team. I think they're bowl eligible this year. They'll be in it. That's about all I got, other than to bring up the fact that, once again, High Tide by Bill Searcy is a really good book. And, Bill, plug it away right now.
Okay. Well, let me say this. First of all, it's a good thing that I don't vote for the Heisman, because I don't know when the votes have to be in. That's number one.
That's okay. They'll do a recount.
10% didn't either. They already put it
in. Number 2 is I think the 4 teams that we've got to talk about and look at in these playoffs are the right 4 teams. I think it's going to be both games. Playoff games will be exciting. That I can only pick one of the games right now, without a doubt, in my mind. But I need to go back.
You're coming back in the next few weeks, aren't you?
Yeah, but that's okay. I need to go back. What I need to do is seriously watch Washington play a few games, which I haven't done, and get a better feel for Washington as far as Alabama, Washington goes. Mm-hmm. And then Army Navy. Gosh, I was gonna say Navy was a lock until Mike just said what he said, but I'm gonna stay with Navy. I'm gonna stay with Navy.
Okay, you like them plus the 8.5 or without the 8.5? You want to give the points?
No,
I don't. Will Army keep it close? Okay, all right. So Army will keep it close. All right. Yeah, because you, Bill, you're actually in a good position along with Brian. You two guys are the only 2 that could end the college regular season with an undefeated mark on college pick'em. I mean, you guys could both go 1-0. So
it's a good thing I've only got one to pick, because believe me, I wouldn't be undefeated.
Yeah, we got the bowl games coming if you want to go through the bowl season with us and do the show.
I'll do that.
All right.
Yeah.
So we'll just plan on it next Sunday night again, if that's all right with
Brian.
Brian.
That's a wrap. This is great. All right, I'm happy to be a part of this team. This team has been Mike Goodpaster, Brian Schmidt, and our special guest, Bill Searcy. I'm Oz Davis, and you have been listening to the Grueling Truth Weekly College Football Pick'em Show. Enjoy the games.